Hey guys, how are you doing?
Hey, we're
Hey,
doing great.
good. How are you
Thanks
guys?
for having us.
We're excellent. I'm Daniel,
And I'm Shabazz.
and thank you so much for sharing your time with us on the movie podcast today.
Of course.
Yeah, so happy to be here.
We are such big fans. We had such a great time watching Missing, so thank you first and foremost for that. Nick, with Missing being your directorial debut, what challenges came with telling a story through the POV of a screen?
Oh yeah. So Will and I picked a pretty difficult one to start with, I would say. Yeah, there's so many challenges, but that's also the fun of the format, right? So you're constantly Seven and Niche wrote the treatment that we based this on, and that we based the script on. And I think what you're constantly doing with this format is trying to one find apps that are really relatable that everyone uses that feels grounded and trying to find the cinematic equivalent of that of Tom Cruise running across a bridge, you know. Like I think like you're trying to take classic cinematic tropes and map them onto the screen. And then two, you just have plot points that you need to convey, and so you're constantly asking yourselves, okay, but how do we ground this in a screen? And that's a really difficult challenge, and it can be really frustrating sometimes to try to find that solution. But then when you do, it's really magical because there's just this 0.1% solution that everything clicks. And so I think that's the fun of the format as well.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we love so much in Searching and Out and Missing, where it's like it could easily feel very claustrophobic if you let it, but there are so many just different outlets that you don't even realize that we're using to be constantly communicating with one another. So I think it reflects so well, especially in this film.
Awesome. Thank you.
Missing, it's so heavily reliant on technology and social media. I gotta wonder how little screen time do you now both have in your own personal lives? And Natalie, I'd love to start with you.
How little screen time?
Yeah.
I wish less, honestly. I mean, so much of, making a movie is being on screens, but yeah, definitely the ratio of like personal screen time to like filmmaking screen time has diminished. But yeah, I mean, we spent 2 years, editing this film and working with our awesome editors, Ariel Zakowski and Austin Keeling. And, so we were staring at screens, pulling up our own screens to figure out if those screens matched those screens. So lots of screen time. I wish I had more TV time. I'll say that.
Nick, how about for yourself? Are you find yourself less on your phone? Are you more cautious of how you're using your phone now?
Sure. Social media gives me a lot of personal anxiety in my life, so I try to I just don't. I enjoy putting my phone aside, not checking emails. I'm a terrible texter. But in a weird way, I also use them out of necessity because I want to understand like how people are communicating. And obviously for this movie, like Natalie said, like I downloaded TikTok for this movie early on when we were writing, and now I'm on TikTok all the time. So this movie has kept me engaged, I guess, in that way. And then working with Storm and it keeps me engaged. But personally speaking, I'm not super on social media. Yeah.
I think we're less like social media savvy than
Yes.
one would think.
Yeah.
That we make these movies.
And like with these apps, like they're always constantly changing and evolving. Did you kind of find yourselves working against the clocks of all that change to showcase something that was really reflecting that time?
Oh yeah. Oh my God. So often because we spent, 2 years working on it, like iOS would change and there would just be like panic
Nightmare.
and be frightened to edit.
So we shot, like, for instance, FaceTime, what used to be a vertical, right? And so we shot all of June in FaceTime with the vertical frame.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden iOS comes out and it's a horizontal frame. And we're like, what? First of all, we got really defensive. We're like, surely this looks terrible, right? Like this doesn't look good. Why would they do this? But then we slowly came, like, we're like, okay, the reality is we have to do it. So we're painting out lights, in the frame that were in there.
Yeah.
And then all the graphics we had already done, we'd have to redesign. So we were really lucky that, how iOS used to have like a lot of shadows and shading. We're lucky that whole revolution happened before this.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't, it wasn't too bad, but
We joke that we're making it like we're making a period movie in the present day somehow, because like
It's
the
so
minute
true,
it
though.
comes out, it's
It's
gonna
true.
be, somewhat dated, but it's kind of cool too, because it becomes this like time captures a moment in time.
Yeah, there's so many movies where when we see social media, we're like, oh my God, do you remember when Facebook used to look like that? Or,
I missed that later.
Or like that later was so much better.
Yeah.
Obviously you both worked on Searching back in 2018. Natalie, what was it about Will and Nick that made them the perfect fit for the director's chair this time around for Missing?
I mean, the honest answer is like there was no one else. It's like if they said no, I honestly don't know that we would have made the movie because, Searching one was was such a team effort, and we were figuring things out and learning things as we went. But a huge part of the style of that film, creatively and also technically too, because that shouldn't be not touched on. Really, it goes to Will and Nick. They're in there figuring it out with Anisha's direction, of course. And so when it came time to do this, we knew Anish didn't want to direct. I don't think he wanted to go and do another 2 years of screens constantly. And so we turned to these guys, and Nick and Will had written a screenplay, in between Searching and Missing. So we knew they could write a really, really fantastic screenplay, and we knew they could pull off the screen element. So it made that part of producing this very easy.
That's amazing. Ryan Johnson's mentioned that bad guys can't use Apple devices based on Apple's rules. Is this something that you had to kind of work around with Missing as well?
Yeah, to some extent. We worked very closely with like a team of lawyers to figure out what can and can't be shown. But yeah, the rule that we try to stick to is like if a character is doing something kind of nefarious, you want to kind of create your own app or UI or whatever for that.
Right.
But sometimes we didn't only use that rule for nefarious things, because then that could give away, like I think in the Knives Out thing, like people caught on that spoiler alert if you haven't seen Knives Out, that Chris Evans uses the Android.
Right.
So like we created the dating app in this film called Lovely. For other reasons, but yeah,
we signed up on that app right after the movie finished. So.
I think we're gonna start pitching it to the tech world.
Any angel investors out there?
Yeah.
Is there anything that like both of you came across while making this film that kind of freaked you out? Because like I think the premise of the film itself is that like you could really follow a lot of what people are doing in the world today. Did any of that like freak you guys out personally when you were like, wow, like these are things that are actually possible that people can do?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were vaguely aware of how much Google was tracking us, but the ability to literally, if you get into someone's account, see every single thing they did throughout the day, that was pretty interesting, and also immediately we were like, oh, this is a great opportunity. This is really interesting. Right. I also think I found when we were researching, I did find a lot of like kind of alarming programs for like stealthily monitoring people's laptops, built for like private investigators. But I was like, this is messed up. I'm not sure I like that this exists and is a thing I could buy for $79.99 from some website or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, stuff like that.
I remember early in the story development, we I think we all listened to the podcast To Live and Die in LA, and that, which is based on a true story and follows I'm blanking on his name, but the journalist's actual work, and like hearing how he used Google, and location services to kind of track down that case. It's scary, but then like, as creators, we were like, well, this is great because it's not that far-fetched.
Right.
But that happened a lot of times where we'd like look up something and constantly be surprised at how non-far-fetched, an idea that we may have had while we were developing really was.
Yeah, there's like a subtlety to the PSA of, watch the settings on your phones and be careful of the apps that you use that you guys did a fantastic job of showing. I'm sure that when I was watching the movie, I would like go into my settings right after and be like, oh my God, I have that enabled. I probably should turn that off.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
Nick and Natalie, thank you again so much for sharing your time with us on the movie podcast today. We cannot wait to see what you work on next, and for everyone to check out Missing in theaters.
Thank you guys so much.
This is great.